Okay, so good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, wherever you are. And thank you for having me. And in today's session, I'm going to talk about how we can use the Azure DevOps for Power Apps deployment. And Power Apps deployment consists of all kind of artifacts. It could be your Canvas app, model-driven app, web resources, workflows, or any artifacts we are going to use in that. So before I jump into that, I would like to thank all the organizers for this Power Platform Bootcamp from Saudi Arabia and inviting me as a speaker and allowing me to share my thoughts on how we can use Azure DevOps to automate few things regarding the Power Apps deployment. So before I jump into the session, I would like to share a few things about myself. So I am Kirti and I'm working as an independent modern workplace consultant as well as SharePoint architect. And along with that, I'm also an MVB and Microsoft certified trainer. And my interest is just to educate or share the knowledge within the community. So that's why I'm involved in the different community groups in India as well as outside of India and other countries where I'm sharing my knowledge with Microsoft 365, SharePoint, and Office development component using Microsoft Teams and Power Platform. And also, I'm an organizer of M365 Ahmedabad user group, under which user group umbrella we are organizing such events which can help our local community, and we can just educate them what is the cutting edge technology having in the Microsoft stack, right? And if you want to get in touch with me, then you can see the my social media information on the right side of the slide. So I will be more than happy to connect with all of you and glad to be part of your network and just to grow the knowledge of each other. So let me just jump into this now. So for today's event, today's session, I'm just keeping very simple agenda because I'm going to more focus on the demo part, like how we can utilize that. So before we jump into the demo or understanding any artifacts or any technical words, it's better to have some overview of DevOps, then how the DevOps lifecycle works. And apart from this, how Azure DevOps can be utilized and what is that and what are the components we are going to use and how we can leverage all this capability of Azure DevOps into the Power Apps deployment process. And then I'll show you everything with the demo. So first thing is, what is DevOps? As I know that the previous session was also related to that, so most of the people might be aware with what is DevOps, but I'm trying to filter out in a different way, like the definition of like it's a combination of two words that is called DevOps, the development and the operation. So it's a combination of two different teams comes together and do the job for us. Like for example, the practice that allows a single team, the development and the operations team, though both the teams are different, but it is coming as a single team and allows to manage the entire application development lifecycle. Either it could be development, testing, deployment, or the operations. And also it promotes the collaboration between two different teams, which can help us to deploy the code in different environments. Either it could be from your dev environment to QA, QAT, pre-production or the production, using the automated and repeatable way, right? So in that case, we do not have to worry about like we missed out anything or we are not able to push the code from dev to different environment as is. And in the simple word, I can say it is the union of people. Like here, I'm considering people as both two different teams, development and operations, and it is a process. So it could be kind of we have to set up some development servers or development environment, some resources engagement. So that can be a combination of that, and also it could be products that enables continuous delivery. So this is just a simple DevOps definition I'm trying to explain here, and I hope that you can relate that it's a combination of two different people on a different team. Now, next is the question should be like, though we are able to do this kind of deployment manually, then why we need this DevOps, right? So let's assume that whenever we are doing any kind of development or any kind of implementation, then we may have different teams responsible to complete that component or project or whatever the assignments we are working on. So maybe it may possible that team worked in complete isolation. So that will be the first scenario. And the second one is the testing and the deployment were isolated activities in most of the cases. And the third and most important thing is it is very time consuming in terms of you have to test it, deploy it, and then redesign or design it. And the fourth one is the whenever you are doing this manual process, so you have to prepare a checklist of whatever the files you are going to push from your dev environment to different environment. So the manual code deployment leads to the human errors. So maybe if I missed out any file or any important file, for example, CSS file or JS file, which is allowing me to have some kind of better user experience or a kind of some validations on the any of the form. And I missed out that. So it could be a kind of error in the production. And the most important thing is in a big organization like development team is responsible for only development of those components. They are not responsible to deploy those packages. So they have to wait for the operations teams to come into the comes into, and then I can share the package to the team, and then that team can do the deployment process. So here it's a separate timeline for development operations teams. So both are not together working in the manual process. So those are the points that I'm trying to convey here, like why we are going to use the DevOps. So because of these issues, we should do with some kind of automated process where both the teams should be in the sync and they can save some time without having any human errors in different environments, and we can deploy the component in timely manner. So that's a definition like or the reason why we should go with the DevOps. Now everything has a life cycle. Like if you work with the .NET application, then that page has a life cycle. So when page loads and page ends, so everything has a life cycle, same as a human body. So again, DevOps is also having a life cycle. So let's say, for example, how this DevOps life cycle comes in, or how we can relate with our day-to-day activity. Let's say in our organization or in any organization, we have two different departments, marketing and the sales. Now, the organization wants to build something or they want to introduce something with a different customer or with a different set of people. So what they are doing, they are doing some kind of brainstorming and some get some ideas from different set of users, or they may have some questionnaire and then they have kind of survey on that and they collect some ideas from the market. And then based on that, they will prepare some business plan. Okay, these are the questionnaire we have shared it. We received this much of response, and this is the plan or a draft plan to execute this whole process. So after that, getting the business plan, what they are doing, they are just planning something on that, like how we can execute all these steps in sequence so we can achieve our goal. So for that, they will decide what will be the architecture we are going to use. For example, Agile, CMM, or any other I can say other standards the company is using. So they have to follow that. And then they start with the development along with the assigning the resources, preparing the team, and then they can jump into the actual implementation of that. So after development started, once the development is decided, okay, we are going to use with this structure, then the development area will be this. Then they build some code using different source control editors like Visual Studio Code or some other, which is relevant to the functionality they are working on. And after that, development, some QA team member will come into that and start testing. And once they test it, everything is fine. I'm just thinking about the happy scenario now. So they just identified all the use cases, executed it, and move it to the production. Now, after moving this solution into the production, what happens? Like how you will come to know, okay, the solution which we have deployed is working as expected, or you are looking for more input from the user, right? So once that is available for end user, then we might get more feedbacks from end users, and then based on those feedbacks, we have to again start thinking about like how we can achieve this functionality, or how we are going to introduce new features which can fulfill the newly received feedbacks from the end users. So that goes again to the sales team, and then again they start the brainstorming or getting the idea, then try to prepare a plan for that specific component, and then move it to the development process. So this is just an example of like how the idea, how the two teams come up with some kind of idea, they prepare the business plan and execute into the manner that the planning, development, testing, production could be in the cycle, right? So that's how the DevOps life cycle works. Now, this is an introduction of the DevOps. Now, if we think about how Azure DevOps can help us. So for Azure DevOps for Power Apps specifically, so first of all, we need a kind of Azure DevOps Git repository where we are going to like push our code first as a version control or the source control, whatever terms we want to use. Then for Azure DevOps for Power Apps, we must have the Power Apps environment with the database enabled. Otherwise, we will not be able to create the solution. So first requirement is whatever the DevOps process we are going to use, or any pipeline or release we are going to create, it should be possible only with the solution. So to create a solution, we should have the environment enabled with the database. And the third one is we should require a kind of Azure Active Directory access, direct access, or it's a kind of contributor access on any of the subscription where we should create our enterprise application or app registration. So that's the third requirement. And the fourth is whenever I'm creating any kind of artifacts, any objects which is related to Azure DevOps or Power Apps, I should be able to connect with different environments. So for that, I may need to connect with I may need to get my environment URLs, or I have to add those enterprise application as a application user in different environments. So I need a kind of Power Platform administrator permission. Either I could have, or I can pass it to the person who is managing this whole administration part of the Power Platform. And then again, we should have the Dynamics 365 permissions, and then we can create the Azure DevOps pipeline. So these are the prerequisites. I'm assuming that we should have before we start any kind of implementation of Azure DevOps for Power Apps. So these are the points I'm going to cover in next 20 to 25 minutes, where I will showcase you that how everything can be clubbed together and allow us to create any kind of these pipelines and release. So now I'm just jumping into the demo directly. So I'm just opening my Power Platform environment. So first, let me talk about the requirement we were talking about. So as I mentioned that we should have this Azure portal access. So assuming that I do have the Azure portal access, where I'm going to create one enterprise application, which can help me to create a bridge between my Power Platform environment and the Azure DevOps. So I'm going to use this for creating that. And yes. Okay. So for this demo, I'm going to use two different environments. One is my development environment, that is SPC Dev. And from this environment, I'm going to push my solution to SPC QA. That's my destination environment. So for this demo, I'm going to use two environments, but it could be more than two, or we can use more than one environment, and we can deploy the parallel, or we can create the parallel releases, which can push the code from one environment to another environment. So that's the one thing. So for this demo, I'm going to use two environments, And this is my dev environment where I have created this solution called PPC-2023. And these are the artifacts I'm going to use in this. So you can see I have two apps available in this solution. One is my model-driven app, and one is the default fundraiser app I have used from the template which I have, and one is the Canvas app. And then I have one workflow. This is just a trigger of the workflow, and I can send that whatever the trigger notification I have added. And then I am using two different connection references, one for the workflow and one for sending an email. And then this is the sitemap I have used into the fundraiser, and I am using only one table. So I'm trying to get a few of the objects in my solution which can identify that, okay, it is moving as is into your destination environment. So this is my solution which I'm targeting to move from dev to QA. So let me first go to QA. And before this session, I just tested it. So I'm deleting this solution from here. So let it be deleted. Now, as I mentioned that we need a kind of Azure subscription. So why we need that? Right? So first, as I mentioned, to build a bridge between this Power Platform and Azure DevOps, we need a kind of authentication or token available, which can allow us to connect with two different services, the Power Platform and the Azure DevOps. So first thing is, if I go into Azure DevOps, then you can see first the repo. I'm also deleting this repo, which I created before this session. So now I don't have anything. I just have a project name called PPC23_DLR, and I have enabled the main branch for this repo. Now, to start with this pipeline and releases, the first and important thing is to you have to set up the bridge between your Power Platform environment and the Azure DevOps environment. So that's the first thing. So for that, we have to process two steps. The first one is in your Power Platform environment. If I go to my admin center, Power Platform admin center. So first thing, you have to bring the environment URLs, copy all the environment URLs which you are going to use in your this process, the Azure DevOps pipeline process. So here you can see I am going to use SPC Dev and SPC QA. So I need to grab the URL of both the environment. So you can just click on that and copy that environment URL from this screen. So you can see this is my environment URL, right? So this environment URL I'm going to use into Azure DevOps, where I'm trying to create my service connection. So service connection will help me to connect with my Power Platform, and it will allow me to connect with specific environment, right? So this environment URL I have to grab for whatever the whatever the environment you are going to use in your process. So you have to copy all of them. So in this case, I have to copy these two environment URL, one for dev and one for QA. That's the one thing. Now, whenever we go to this Azure portal, we have to create that app registration as an enterprise application. So one I have already created, but you have to create one registration which can allow you to connect with your Power Platform and Azure DevOps. So here I have just created that. Select that. This one. So I have created this app registration where you have to set up your certificate and secret. So you can see that this is my application ID 5F something number. So this application ID I'm going to use in my Azure DevOps service connection, and this secret, this value I'm going to use with that application ID. So it's a combination of application ID and your client secret value. So by using this, I will be able to connect my Azure DevOps and Power Platform, right? So assume that I have created this secret is already with me, and I'm going to use this to connect my Azure DevOps service with my Power Platform. So assume that this application ID is 5FDB. Now, if I go to my Azure DevOps, before I go to the Azure DevOps, once this is done, I have to add this user into my Power Platform, because how my Azure DevOps will understand, okay, this is the app registration you have created, and this is associated with which environment, right? So this application, app registration information, I have to add into each environment as a user. So if I go to my admin part, let's say I'm in the dev environment. Once you go to that, and here you will be able to see the users option. And once you are here, you can see the app users list, right? So once I click on that, I will be able to see the application users available in this application. So here you can see the one which I have added, this user you have to add, and you can see the application ID is the one which I have created for that app registration. So how you can find that? Let's assume that you have created it. Now I'm going to add new user. So from here, click on add, and then just search with name or that application ID. So for example, in our case, this is our application ID. Just copying it and using this. So I think this is already added, so I'm not able to see that, but you have to find that here, like add an app from Microsoft Entra ID. So this is our application ID. And then once you select that, you will be able to see that name here in this one drop box will be available. And from there, you have to allow that user a security role with the admin system administrator access. And once you click on create, it will create that user like this. So this user is already there. The same user I have added into the QA environment. So if I go to the QA environment, I will be able to see the same user, app user list. And here you can see the same application ID. So I am using single common Entra ID for both the environment, but it may be different in different business scenario or different application requirement. So once you are done with this by allowing this user to be added into any environment as a system administrator, now we are going to proceed with the Azure DevOps pipeline setup and release setup. So before we jump into any pipeline or anything, first thing we need to set up the service connection. So if I click on the project settings of your Azure DevOps project, you will be able to see this left side menu, and from there you can see the service connections. So once you click on that, assume that you have not any service connection added, so it will be blank for you. But for me, I can see 2 service connections are created. Now, if you click on new service connections, then first we need to check for which you are going to create service connection. So from here, you have to search for the Power Platform. Because I want to create the service connection, allow me to connect my Azure DevOps to Power Platform. So I'm just selecting that. Now here, see, all the discussion which I had just explained about the internet ID and other service environment URLs, we have to use here. So for example, server URL. So for which environment you are trying to create this service connection. So you have to use that server URL, means your environment URL. It could be your dev, UAT, production or pre-production. So in that case, if you go here, any of the environment, so this is the environment you have to use here. So all the service connection depends on how many environments you are going to use. If you are going to use 3 environments, then you have to create 3 service connection. And all these 3 environments will have different server URLs. So first you have to add this here. And then the second is the tenant ID. So if I go to Azure again, then from here you can see the directory tenant or tenant ID. So you have to grab this tenant ID as well. And it will be common for all the environments. And then the application ID. So application ID is the Entra ID, which this client ID, which we were talking about. So you have to use this application ID. And along with that, you have to use this secret value as well, right? So if I go again into this one, here you have to use application ID and secret. Then these are the common values, like I can type it anything. This is uh, the name which we can recognize. Okay, this is the service connection for this environment. And then description is optional if you want to add any. And most important thing is don't forget to check this checkbox for security, which allows us to uh, access permissions to all the pipelines for this project. So that's the important thing. So the same setup we have to perform for all the environments which we are going to use in any of the pipeline or the release process. So I'm assuming that you understood this process and we are done with creating two service connections, but I'll open one of them and see how I can get in these values. So I'm just opening that. So here you can see this is my dev environment URL, and this is my tenant ID, and this is my application ID. And the application ID also associated with one client secret. So I just use that and provided the service connection name as my understanding language. So I can identify, okay, this is service connection related to my dev environment. And I have enabled the grant access permission to all pipelines is checked. So same thing for my other pipeline, service connection. We go here, you can see the service URL, server URL, and the rest of the thing remains same, apart from this service connection name. Okay. So once we are done with this, we are good to proceed with our first pipeline creation. So in the left side, you can see the pipelines option, and then you have to, if you don't have any pipeline, then you can just click on the new pipeline, and it will allow you to open a new interface from where you can set up the pipeline. So assume that I have created, and I'm just opening this as a edit mode. So this will be the interface for you. And here you can see this is my pipeline name. And if I click on the source, so here you can see there are a number of sources available from where I want to consider as a repository for my source for the solution code. So in this case, I'm just using Azure Repos Git as a source control, and I will be going to use this. You can also use GitHub or Subversion, Bucket, other Git version, or GitHub Enterprise Server. But in this case, I'm going to use this. And here you can see the team project name is also available for you. The project which I have created here, PPC23-TLR, and the repo name is already there, and the branch name is main, and the rest of the settings are default. I have not changed anything. So this is how I can connect with my source. And now, before I jump into all this task, agent task, I have enabled or configured one variable for the solution name, because I do not want to use this name as a hard-coded value in any of the tasks for that agent. So you can create that variable with your solution's internal name. Make sure you have to use the internal name, not the display name. So I'm using this variable, and again going to task. Now, let's assume that we have to perform some tasks, like think about the manual process, like how we are manually doing the export and import solution from one environment to another environment. So these are the same step I'm following, but one task is in addition to the manual process, because I have to tell the Azure DevOps, okay, I am going to perform this the task for my Power Platform. So this environment should have all the installable files available. right? So first task I'm going to use is Power Platform Tool Installer. So it will install all the prerequisites which can help me to execute this export and back other Power Platform CLIs. So add this command, add this task. So how can you add that? Click on plus, and from here you can just type in Power Platform, and it will list out all Power Platform related tasks. Right? So I have used that Power Platform Tool Installer as a first task. Likewise, you can use different set of tasks as per our requirement. Now, what will be the first step in the manual process? So we are exporting the solution, right? So to export the solution, I have to tell Azure DevOps, okay, this command will be linked with my dev service connection, which we have created. So here you can see in the authentication type, we have two options, username, password, and the service principal. Right. So we'll go with the service principal. We are not going to use username and password because we have to open that text box for adding those information. So I'll go with the service principal, and I can select or I can see how many service connections I have created. So this is for dev environment. So I'm going to use my dev environment service connection associated with dev environment URL, server URL. And here you can see which solution name I'm going to use. So I am using this variable name where I have defined the name of my solution. And this is the file. So this will be the file which I can see in my Azure repo. So let me open this too. So first in it. So here in under this project, whatever the name I'm going to use here, that will be available for me. So I'm using this naming convention like my solution name underscore managed. Right now, here you can see you have both the options available. How you want to export this solution as a managed or unmanaged. So if you are going to use as a managed solution, you just have to select this checkbox as export as managed solution. And this name is only for my understanding purpose. Okay, this is the managed solution because I don't I will not be able to see once the document, sorry, the solution is available in repo as a solution name. So it's very difficult for me to identify the solution is managed or unmanaged. So I'm just using this naming convention and selecting this export as managed solution. And then rest of the all these configuration properties are as is. I have not changed anything. And then after exporting, what I'm going to use, I'm going to unpack this solution because I want to push this as an unpacked artifacts into my Azure repo here. So I'm using this unpacked solution. So for unpacked solution, from where I'm going to get this file. So this is my input file, which is output file of the export solution. You can see the same line of code I am using into unpacking the solution, right? And then this will be my folder in the repo, Azure repo, my solution name / manage. So I will have a manage folder under my solution name, and I will have all the artifacts linked into or available in this folder. So this is all the setting for that. Now, how I can commit those things? I have to commit or push that all these artifacts into my Azure DevOps, right? So for that, I'm going to use this PowerShell script, which can allow me to identify a few things like my solution name. So I'm getting that from variable and my branch name and who is going to perform this process, this check-in process, checkout process to export your solution into the repo. So I'm using this, and this is the command, git command, using which I will be able to get the token and push my code into the Azure repo. And the last one is I'm unpacking the solution, committing all the changes I'm going to commit into my repo. So here I'm just jumping into my source directory. And here you can see I'm just committing all these artifacts within my solution. Okay? And then I'm using the push for the token which I have received. So these two script will be available on any of the Power Platform code or the learning portal. So you can update accordingly. And these are the steps I'm going to perform with your pipeline. Right. So once we are done with this, let me just go back and run this pipeline. I'm running this pipeline, and this will help me to pull this solution, this EPC underscore 2023 to my Azure repo here. I will be able to see that here once this pipeline process is completed. So if you want to monitor it, let's click on the agent job one, and all the tasks which I have just explained, like Power Platform installer, then export, unpack, and do PowerShell script, all this will be execution will be available here. You can see this. So it will take a while to execute all the steps. And once this is done, you can also find that timings are visible, like how long your each and every operation takes. So it will give you a glimpse, like hardly it will take around a minute or so, but it all depends on how many artifacts you have in your solution. So you have to bear with that. If you have kind of complex components in your or number of components in solution, then it may take more time than expected. And here you can see the process of completion is also available for you. So you can identify that how much time each and every steps is taking. So once all the steps are completed, then we will be able to see the new folder created in this project here like this. So let's see one more thing. So once we are done with that, so once assume that this is done, and for that now we want to push this code from Azure repo to my destination environment, that is my QA environment here. So what I'll do, I'll go to my release, and I have to create the release, right? So for creating the release, how I can create it? So if assume that if you don't have anything here, click on create release, and it will open a new window to set up all this configuration. So I'm just clicking on edit just to considering the time constraint. And let's see also here. Okay, checkout commit, all good. So let me just refresh the repo. Yeah. So you can see the folder is there with my solution name, and under that we have the another folder called manage. And under manage, I have all the artifacts which I have mentioned here in my solution. This one, right? All the artifacts are available in my repo. Now, pipeline is done. Now I want to push this solution into my destination environment, that is my QA environment. So for that, I have to create my release. So make sure that you can see this number 240, that is my commit number. So whenever I'm creating my release, so let me go release, edit. So first thing you have to, again, I'm going to set up one variable with the solution name because I do not want to use hardcode value. And here you can see I have just set up the connections which I have used in my dev environment. So either or option you can see, either you want to go with this or you can also use some environment variables. Now, if I go to pipelines, click on your artifacts, the source, and here you can see I'm going to use main branch, and then this is my source areas, right? So this is just a kind of naming how you are going to use the name. And here you can see the default version, which default version you are going to use. So it says latest from the default branch. So whatever the latest version I have in my default branch, that is my main branch, it will get as a reference. Now for this release, I have to write few tasks. So I'm just adding those tasks here. So first task again, we have to use or tell the Azure DevOps, okay, I want to run this for my Power Platform. So I have to install the Power Platform tool installer. So I'm using that. Now think that in the in the previous step, when we were creating pipeline, the last step was unpack, right? So now what we are going to do, we are going to pack this whole artifacts using this pack command, right? Power Platform pack solution. Now, in this scenario, we have to grab the solution name from the source folder, which is this. This is our solution folder. So from here, I'm going to take the name and then solution output file. So I'm going to use the solution name.zip. And what is the type of solution? So in this dropdown, we have three options, right? Both manage and unmanage. So for this one, I'm going to use manage. So I've selected manage, and then rest of the configuration is as is. Now, after packing the solution, the next command is you want to import it. So again, you have to set up that environment. Like I want to go to use this service principal, and here you have to select the service connection which points to your destination environment. In the pipeline, we have used the dev service connection. Now here I'm using the service connection which I have created for my QA environment. And then this is DevOps tool installer. So I'm just using this because I have used those connection reference. So this is a third party service or the product available or the tool available, which I'm going to use in my pipeline release. So I have to use this DevOps tool installer and then for updating the connection reference. So I'm just giving my all the connection reference here, and that will help me to not getting any error while I'm trying to run or turn on the workflows in my destination environment. And then the last one is the publishing the customization. So once everything is there, I'm just trying to publish all customization in my destination environment. So here again, the QA environment service connection name I have to use. So once this is done, then I'm just going back to the release again and create release. So here you can see I have set up this trigger to QA, right? And if I click on the drop down, I have only one environment, but it could be more than one options available or the stages available for you. If you want to skip anything or check as per your requirement, you have that option. But for me, I can see only QA, so I'm selecting that. And from here, you can see the artifacts I want to get from this source, and this will be my version number 240. Right? If I click on this one, so this is my older one which I've deleted during this demo. So I'm going to use the latest one, that is my 240 number. So if I go here, and you can see this number, the latest commit number of my solution. So that is 240. So I'm picking that and click on create. So my release is created. If I click here, it is still not deployed because I have a setup that I would like to manually start the deployment process. So if I click on deploy, and again, I can see if I click here, queue for pipeline, click on that, and the agent job task will be available for me here. Like all the task execution, I can see, monitor how many percent is completed. If I'm getting any error, I will be able to see the error here, and I can explore more on what went wrong and in which Power Platform command I'm getting an error. So from here, I will be able to see that information. So you can see the same process is for the release, and you can track the time as well. And once all the steps are done, then in my destination environment, in case the QA environment, I will be able to see that solution. So let me just refresh it, manage. I don't see that environment as of now. So still in progress. So it again, as I mentioned, that this will take time based on how many artifacts we have in the solution. Sometimes if you have like limited 5 or 7 artifacts, it may take like couple of minutes, but it may take more than 10-15 minutes based on the number of artifacts you have, right? So you have to bear with that time, and yeah, let's complete this process. So while this process is executing, let me know if anyone have any questions. I can address that meanwhile this process is going on, or if we have anything in the chat window. When running a pipeline, the enterprise app will be all artifacts. Yes. In solution, how do you do this in terms of licensing? Okay. So this all depends on, it is not related to the licensing part, but we are adding this as a user. This enterprise application we are going to use as an application user in your both the environment or n number of environments from where we are trying to connect with our Azure DevOps to our Power Platform environment. So it is not related to license, but yes, one most important thing is you have to keep eye on your secret ID. So recently, I'll show you. It was expired for me. This one you can see. This one was the expired one. So I was not able to execute my pipeline. So this secret I created today only, today morning, right? So you have to keep a track of this. It is nothing related to the license, but the secret, if it is expired, then you will not be able to run any of the pipeline because we are using this connection into our service connection, Azure DevOps service connection. So whenever service connections try to connect with your this application ID, it will directly go to your service certificate secret and check whether that's enabled or not. If it is active, then and then it will allow you to connect with your the Power Platform services. Have anything else you are looking out for, or the answer which I have shared or explained answer your question? Yeah, so here, see, there are a couple of things I'm also observing that sometimes what happens, in this case, what happens, like we have to push whole solution, right? Either if you are adding any web resource or removing something and trying to push from your one environment to another environment, we don't have any track like what has been updated in that because it is pushing whole solution as a one go, right? We don't have a track that, okay, from whole solution, let's say in my case, I have 10 artifacts, 10 objects, but I have updated only one. Then I cannot see those changes upfront. Like I have to go to the repo and then have to check what has been updated. Or whenever you are doing some commit, you have to mention that these are the changes I have committed in this in this deployment process. So that's where you can identify the updated one. Okay, I have to more hand raise. Let me first check if we have completed the process. Yeah. So my release is done, and let me go to my destination environment and just hard refresh, and I will be able to see that solution. And yeah, see, you can see now here you can see the version number. So that is also coming from like the export process. So in manual process, whenever we are exporting the same version number of time, it will automatically increment the version number with this one. But yes, we can also change as per our requirement. Like if you want to add something more with the build number, like what is the build number of this version? And based on the build number, I think this might be the answer for that question, the updated information. So you can track your build version somewhere in your Confluence or wherever the release notes you are preparing. So in that case, you can just mention that this is the build number and this is the update we have accommodated or linked with this release. And then you will be able to verify in your destination environment that these are the changes reflected as an updated one, not with the new one, right? Because few things will be there in the full deployment when you're deploying the solution first time, and then rest of the deployment will be your incremental deployment, not the full deployment. Because it may possible that sometimes you are just updating one label in your model-driven app, but that change should be go to your deployment process. So that will be an incremental deployment, not the full deployment, because you are targeting only one label on one specific entity form. So that's why considering that incremental deployment process. And now if I click on this, I will be able to see all the same artifacts which I have in the dev environment. You can see total 7. I have total 7 artifacts here. And I can see my Canvas app and model different app as well. Right? Now what happens here, if you are trying to open this app directly from here, let's say for example, from here if I want to open it, it may give you an error because we have not added any user or shared this app with any of the user. I'm talking about the full deployment process. So first of all, you have to share this app with relevant set of users, and then they will be able to see the changes reflected on that. Right? So this is how this whole process works, like considering your Azure DevOps access, Power Platform access, then creating those enterprise application or app registration in Azure portal, Azure Active Directory, and then use that to connect your Azure DevOps and Power Platform and create pipeline, use your artifacts and save into the Azure repo, and then create the release which can bring or pull all those artifacts from your Azure repo and push it to the destination environment. So that's how the whole process works. And yeah, that's it from this demo purpose, but I'm happy to take more questions on this. I can see, can we repeat the check process for more than one solution? How to choose one? Own template in ALM accelerator. I'm not sure about the ALM accelerator, but yeah, I also love the green successful icon because it's very painful when you see any of the red color, but it will not give you idea like where you are wrong, right? It says unexpected error, but where? So it's very difficult to identify. But yeah, once you know that it is coming under a specific task, like for example, export. So you will be able to identify where I'm wrong or where something is missing. Yeah, coming back to this ALM accelerator. So I'm not sure about the ALM accelerator, but just from the Azure DevOps, we have this template can be created for with YAML. So that can be used as a template, and that template can be used for repetitive solutions. Like if you have n number of solutions available in your organization, and you are going to use the same template, same structure, with same kind of configuration, but you just have to change the solution name. So you can just create the template, and that template can be used as much as possible as a repetitive task for the deployment process of different solutions. Does that satisfy answer, Verma?
Yes, thanks for that. But I'm looking for dynamically, I need to send the solution names where if I have entities again, and based on that, how can we trigger that pipelines?
So I'm not sure, but yeah, for that we can say you can create a kind of variables, different set of variables, and create one script before pushing everything to your solution, you can create one script, which script can connect with your all variables or get all variables in an array. And then you have to prepare a kind of key and value mapping. And based on the key value, it will try to find which is the solution name you're pulling from that variable list. This is just a like I'm just thinking about out of the box, but this could be the solution, because what happens, there is nothing dynamically, like we have to pass something as a parameter. So I'm considering that variable name is our parameter name. Based on that, it will identify to pass that the variable name or the parameter in anywhere where we are going to use that command, the name as a solution name. Right. So in this example, I have added one variable. It could be more than one variable. Like I was explaining about the connection references. So for now, I have used connection references as a separate task by using this DevOps tool installer. But it may possible that you want to use variables, and under that variables you are going to use those the connection references. So you have key and value. So key could be your, for example, Outlook connection and the connection reference name. Then for any dataverse activity, you can just create one key and value. So that way you have to map, but again, we should have something which can allow us to get the value based on whatever the key we are passing as a parameter.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so
much. And yeah, so I can see your hand, raise hand.
Yeah. Hi, Kirti. Yeah, thank you for the great session. Actually, I'm very new to ALM process. So very basic question, like if we have the solutions containing the Canvas applications and SharePoint as a backend, so does this ALM still beneficial or suitable to go?
Yeah, not this ALM. I am doing this for the Azure DevOps. ALM is a different one, right? ALM is the one which can be done from the environment itself. So for that, we have to create host environment, then source and destination environment. But yes, here we can be that can be done, like as I mentioned here, right? So what you have to do in the pipeline, sorry, in the release, we have to create the connection reference. I have created any. I have not target here, you can see. So that SharePoint list can be connected as a reference, but make sure that in the destination environment, the same SharePoint list name should be available, the internal name, not the display name, right? So you have to pass that parameter along with your pipeline and release, and then you can move that solution from dev to any of the environment. But it may possible that in your dev environment, sorry, in destination environment, the site name might be different, the display name, but internal name should be shared, and the list name should be unique in the both the environments. So that you have to take care. But yeah, that's possible. That can be done.
Okay, and using Azure DevOps. So do we have any idea about, like, actually in my current organization, they are working from the GitHub Actions for different technologies. So is it possible with the same, like for Power Platform, or what we call DevOps, using the Azure, sorry, GitHub Actions and GitHub? Any idea?
Yeah, GitHub Actions. Yeah, GitHub Actions is a different boat. The whole thing is different than this one. So yeah, that is also possible.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, thank you.